Hi, welcome back. Welcome to Chapter 5, the chapter on entrepreneurship. This is a very important chapter to many of you. I know that in the survey that I did on Canvas, more than 50% of the class expressed interest in starting your own business. And so, using some of the feedback that many of you have shared with me, I've tried to implement some things within this lecture that will apply to you personally, as well as apply the content of the book. And so, starting and managing your own business, page 170 is where we are. Again, following, make sure that we're on the same page. This is using your author's ebook right there, Intro to Business on OpenStax, and we are looking at Chapter 5. I'm following along your author's text. I've tweaked some of the stuff. But it's the same content. The only thing that I've changed is I've imported different case studies and examples. Otherwise, everything else remains the same. All right, let's get started. This is probably the most famous entrepreneur. I really like this picture because a lot of people think maybe that these big CEOs and all these people, they're just so good at everything they do that they've never made mistakes. And so this is a very famous photo. Let's see if you could figure out who it is. This is a young man in 1977. He was in New Mexico, Albuquerque. And there's still some dispute about why the photo was taken. The police department doesn't have records anymore. But my understanding is it was over speeding. And so again, looking at this is Bill Gates, of course, the co-founder of Microsoft. And what's special about this photo is that this is around the time that he had dropped out of Harvard. He was living in a seedy little motel in New Mexico. I'll show you a picture of it. Anyway, that's kind of a way that I wanted to start as probably the most famous, at least one of the wealthiest entrepreneurs of all time. As you know, Microsoft is now worth over $1 trillion. It's the only company out there valued over $1 trillion, and he is worth 1/10 of that. All right, so here we go. This is the content of your ebook if you want to get to it. And I believe same thing here. Sorry about that. I forgot what that was all about. But yes, that is also, if you click on that hyperlink, you'll get the content there of the ebook, and this will take you straight to Chapter 5. Let's keep moving. So the founding of Microsoft, like example that I gave you, here's that. This is what the motel looked like. It was called the Sundowner. Very, very famous place now. I believe they kind of redid it. It was falling apart for a while. But this is where Microsoft was created, right there. And this is the first picture, the first group staff picture of Microsoft. And if you haven't figured it out, there's Bill right there, Bill Gates, Paul Allen, they're all there. And so Gates called Altair, manufacturer of micro instrumental and telemetry system MITs. So this is a company that was making this thing, the Altair. It was hardware only, no software, and it had like a bunch of buttons and lights. And basically, he thought that he could create software for it. He and Gates had neither an interpreter nor an Altair. Yet, 8 weeks before the demo, they developed an interpreter. With the help of Monte Davidoff, and again, this is straight from Wikipedia, by the way. When Alan flew to Albuquerque to meet with the company, the interpreter worked, and they agreed to distribute Altair Basic. So this is what later on is going to be basic programming. Alan moved to Albuquerque. Gates soon quit Harvard to join and co-founded Microsoft there. Revenue of the company totaled $16,000 by the end of 1976. Again, that picture here was taken a year later, 1977. So this was quite the year. All right, again, wanted to start with an example of Bill Gates, one of the biggest entrepreneurs there ever was. Today, his company is worth $1.05 trillion. That's the market cap for it. I pulled this off, I believe, last week on Friday. Today he is worth $104 billion. and the stock is trading at about $137. So that's coming a long way from a little motel in New Mexico. All right, let's get to the economic impact of small business. So a lot of people, again, I think we touched on this in chapter 4, but a lot of people think corporations. In fact, I'm giving you examples of corporations here with Microsoft. But the backbone of the United States really is a small business, right? It's the little guy. 80%, approximately 23 million people of the nearly 29.7 million businesses have no employees. They're run by people or small groups of partners, such as married couples. So that's 80% there. 89% with employees have fewer than 20, and then 99 have 0 to 99. Anyway, it's giving you a lot of stats here. This is straight from your author. I think I'm not going to ask you to memorize all this stuff. You should know at least the first couple. But this is, again, from the SBA, data from 2014. This is coming from your author's book to kind of, let people know that, yeah, most U.S. businesses are small. Are you ready to be an entrepreneur? This is a really, really important question, and a lot of you who have voiced interest in starting your own business, this is for you. A lot of people don't truly understand the sacrifice that it will require to start their own business. I couldn't find it, but the SBA used to have a little questionnaire where it would ask you things like, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most, how important is it for you to spend time with your family? Spend time with your family around the holidays. How important is it for you to work out? If you go to the gym, how important is it for you to have a social life? Do you like watching the game on TV or some shows? All that stuff. And at the end of the questionnaire, the more you answered, 5, basically the least likely you would be to succeed if you were not willing to sacrifice that, right? And if you think about someone who has a small business and who maybe has had them for that small business for a while, maybe they just started, and if you think about that person, a family member maybe around the holidays, and think about, can they take the day to spend the time with the family? Or if they do, are they really there? Are they on their phone or working the whole time, right? And that's part of the sacrifice. So the question, are you ready to be an entrepreneur, is a real question. I have a little picture of Uncle Sam here, but that's a link to the SBA.gov, right? And the reason I did this is because you need to remember that because entrepreneurship is such a huge part of the U.S. economy, in this case, our government has, through the Department of Commerce, this entire division through the Small Business Administration, which is under the guideline of the Department of Commerce, is exclusively designed to not only just encourage, but help Americans start their own business, right? So that's how big a deal this is. So the questions, are, what is new and novel about your idea? Are you solving a problem or an unmet need before you start? Or is this just going to be, I use the example of the ice cream store. You want to open up an ice cream store? Why should I go to your store? What's special about it? Is it going to be like everybody else? Are there similar products or services out there? If so, what makes yours better? Differentiation is the name of the game. One of the things we'll do when we get into marketing a little bit more is understand how significant this is for you, especially as students. Just think when you get your bachelor's degree and you have that piece of paper in your hand, that's not going to be enough on its own. It's what you do at the job interview that's going to really help you get that career you're going for. What have you done? How do you add value to the company? How do you differentiate yourself from everybody else who has the same degree? And it's a good time for you to start thinking about that now. How many languages do you speak? Did you differentiate yourself in terms of what you studied? Did you take some elective classes that add value, or did you just do the fun thing? Did you do an internship? And did you pick were you strategic about the internship? Or did you just go with the company that was cool and fun? All these things to think about, right? What's your target market? How many people would use your product? Have you talked with potential customers? Get their feedback. Would they buy your product? what's the production cost? What do you think the market will pay? It's not because you're in love with the concept and an idea and that you think you'd pay a lot of money for it that everybody feels the same way. How defensible is the concept? Is there good intellectual property? Is this innovation strategic to my business? Is the innovation easy to communicate? How does this thing evolve over time? Again, where would they buy the product? How will it be marketed? I'm sure by now you're getting a headache with all these questions, but they're very important. Again, I direct you to Business 45, the entrepreneurship class, for those of you who want to start your own business, because part of the class requires you to create your own business plan. What I did also here that's not in the chapter, but I just kind of want to give you a heads up for when we get into the chapter on management and strategy, is kind of start thinking about some of these strategic tools that we use to help you position yourself, right? So the VRIO is one. It takes you to there's a link right there. Let's just check it out real quick. And for you to really be successful, you want to ask yourself, value. Is my firm going to exploit an opportunity or neutralize an external threat with a resource capability? And the answer has to be yes. Rarity, the control of rarity capability in the hands of you and maybe just your company. How hard is it to imitate your company? Are you organized in such a way that it's difficult to copy the way you're structured, right? So again, these things are really critical for you to answer. The SWOT analysis, I'm sure most of you have heard of it: strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. The strengths and weaknesses are internal of your company. Opportunities and threats are external. You want to be real honest about identifying those. The pest is perhaps maybe less common. I shouldn't say less common, but maybe not as commonly shown in your textbooks. But it is extremely important as well, right? So you're doing this environmental scanning, same thing for your strategic analysis, and you ask what the political factors are. If in the Inland Empire, the name of the game. We talked about this before. 1 out of every 4 person in the Inland Empire is involved in logistics, warehousing, distribution, etc. And if you think about how the last recession affected them, that was, the Inland Empire was ground zero for, this industry to be directly affected by tariffs and by economic downturn, and it makes a lot of sense. A lot of goods that gets imported from China go through the Inland Empire. We're a hub, kind of a funnel, where Port of LA, Port of Long Beach goes through us because we have a lot of space and we have cheap dirt. Amazon, I don't remember how many warehouses. I think they're on number 4 now in the Inland Empire, and so all these truck jobs, all these people moving stuff around. Most of the stuff comes directly from China. And if you think about, a tariff with China right now, that means that truck driver who's, shipping a lot of the stuff is pulling stuff from a warehouse where, again, chances are products coming in from China and redistributed throughout the US or even Mexico and Canada via the Inland Empire. Again, the economic issues, so they tie in together: political economy, the social issues, the technological, and the legal, environmental, demographic, regulatory. So these are all part of the pest or the pestle. And the positioning map, last but not least, your business, your product. Let's say you wanted to open up a hair salon in Rancho Cucamonga. And, the question is, well, why should I go get my haircut at your salon? What's going to be special about yours, right? And so this is where you want to start identifying your competitors, right? And you come up with different ideas for your X and Y axis. This is maybe is the pricing going to be something you're going to compare your salon to other salon? Are you going to be more pricey or less pricey? And then what else are you going to offer? And so on the Y, it could be basic cuts. It could be more high end with luxury type products. I have no idea. But what if you decided to go in and use product that are all without chemicals, right? What if you decided to do that and you wanted to be the first salon that recycled everywhere? You would end up with something like this. You would end up with what we call a void in the market, where maybe in Rancho, all the salons occupy a particular space here and there, but there's no one out there that cuts hair with product that don't have chemicals in there. So that's just an example of that as well, in terms of, we call that a positioning map, or in a branding map, or there are different terms for it, the perception map. All right, moving along. Statistics for minority-owned businesses. The number of Hispanic-owned businesses almost tripled between 1997 and 2012. Percentage of U.S. businesses with 1 to 50 employees owned by African Americans increased by 50%. 1 million firms with employees are minority-owned. 53% are Asian American-owned. 11% African American-owned, and a third are Hispanic-owned. And 19% of all companies with employees are owned by women. Still very small number, but rising. So, the cool thing about this is that we live in California. We're extremely diverse. And think about it this way. Because of past history, and we're talking about, banks maybe discriminated against minorities with lending, etc. Because of that, the SBA and the federal government have gone out of their way to right those wrongs. And so what that means is that there's also a lot of aid, a lot of help specifically directed to minority and female minority businesses by the SBA, by backing some SBA-backed loans that are extremely favorable. All right, types of entrepreneurs. When people think about entrepreneurship is a interesting word in itself. It's a French word which literally means an undertaker, someone who undertakes an endeavor, right? From the French entreprendre. And so that's where if you think about someone who's an entrepreneur, that's what they're doing. They just roll up their sleeves and they decide they're going to just take their own destiny into their own hand by trying something. So the classic entrepreneur, they're risk takers who start their own companies. Again, I use an example of very famous people because, some of you might have heard of them and some of you have not, but they're just kind of fun. So a micropreneur starts small and plans to stay small. When we get into the planning chapter later on, we'll learn about something called grand strategies. And so there's nothing wrong with someone who decides, hey, you know what, this works for me. It pays the bill. I'm happy. I got a good quality of life. And so micropreneurs are going for what's called stability strategy. I have one store. It works out really well for me. I can manage it. I'm happy the way it is. I don't want to open a second store. I'm good. The growth-oriented entrepreneurs want their business to grow into major corporations. So they're going for the growth strategy. Think about Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon. And once upon a time, he accepted an estimated $300,000 from his parents and invested in Amazon. He also warned early investors there's a 70% chance that Amazon would fail or go bankrupt. And then, of course, we know where Amazon is today. It's one of the most valuable companies on the planet in terms of market cap. It's getting near the $1 trillion mark. So Elon Musk, that's him right here. You've probably heard of him by now, the founder of Tesla. That's where he's very, very famous for that. Also SpaceX. When he was 12 years old, he came up with a little video game called Blastar, and he sold that to PC Magazine for $500. So he started already when he was 12. And then he and his brother came up with Zip2s. They sold that to Compaq Computers for $307 million in '99. A couple of years later, they created PayPal, sold that to eBay for $1.5 billion. He created SpaceX in 2002. Then 2004, took over Tesla. 2006, SolarCity/Tesla. SolarCity was acquired by Tesla, and he helped his cousins create SolarCity. 2017, he came up with the Boring Company, and that's the company that makes tunnels. And he's trying to come up with a very, very fast way of traveling in a tunnel. And then I wrote to be continued. What's fascinating about Elon Musk is that we would be talking about him if he had just created Tesla, even PayPal. But this is a guy who just goes on and on. And so he has a net worth of $20 billion. So he's no Bill Gates at $100 billion. But give him time. An intrapreneur. Now look at the word. It looks like it's almost spelled wrong. An intra means inside, right? Intrapreneur apply their creativity, vision, and risk taking within a large corporation. I think that honestly, that's a definition that I would maybe personally think belongs more in a management chapter than in the entrepreneurship chapter. But let me just say this about that. And the reason I wrote 3M is that entrepreneurs who decide that they want to work later on for a big corporation, there are companies like 3M who are more likely to hire someone who had their own business than someone who worked for another corporation. They like the visionaries, the risk takers, people who just again are willing to take risk, and that's how 3M has pioneered lots and lots of stuff. 3M is unique. They actually almost encourage their employees to make mistakes. I believe the expression they had was creative tinkering, where every month you're almost required to take a chance on something and see if it works. And if you think about 3M they invented sandpaper, of course, the Post-it notes. Their chemical stuff is all over the place. This is a company that really is in the business of innovation. And if you think about what 3M stands for, Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing, this is a company that really truly reinvented themselves and is a long way from mining and manufacturing, whereas today their core competency is innovation, right? That's the core competency. And circling back to entrepreneurs, that's a company that's very well known for developing and hiring people with that entrepreneurial spirit, but because they work for a big multinational, we call these people intrapreneur. All right, another quote here, a quote from Elon Musk about being an entrepreneur. Work like hell. You just have to put in 80 to 100-hour week every week. This improves the odds of success. If other people are putting 40-hour work week and you're putting in 100, then even if you're doing the same thing, you know that you'll achieve in 4 months what it takes them a year to achieve. So just food for thought. A lot of the entrepreneurs out there, successful ones, are the ones that are just absolutely obsessed with success, and they will do everything. You have to work hard, you have to work smart, you have to learn. This is a guy who's self-taught. When he created SpaceX, I believe he read 3 or 4 of the must-read books on basically how to make a rocket. And in fact, I think one of his friends jokes that he never returned his book. And so this is a guy who's self-taught in a lot of things. He also jokes that he's never read one single book on time management. All right, the entrepreneurial personality, this is from your author. They're ambitious, right? They're independent. You have to have self-confidence. I mean, again, you're responsible for your own well-being and your future and that of your family maybe. So that's a lot of self-confidence. They're risk takers. Usually that's like one of the first definitions. Vision, they have vision. If you think about Elon Musk again, tip number 1, work super hard. This is a guy who created a company, and if you think about the company that he created, SpaceX, he created a company, and his aim in this case was to compete with foreign space governments. Just think about that for a second. He's not even trying to compete with other businesses. We're done with that. He's competing with space programs ran by countries. I mean, that takes a lot of ambition. Again, being self-confident, a risk taker, independent, and he put all of his fortune into this, and successfully created SpaceX. He's very creative. Some of the stuff that he's done with SpaceX is just absolutely mind-blowing. Let's see if I can show you this real quick. So this to me is still, I still think it's almost science fiction, what he did there. And if you think about the kind of mind that would develop that. So here's a rocket taking off, right? And so it's not a big deal. Here it goes, and it's hovering, and here it is. And then it kind of slows down, and it hovers. And then it goes back, and it lands where it started, right? And this was unprecedented at the time. I'm showing you this one because this was the first. And it led the way to having him now have these rockets go into space, deliver cargo, and then come back and land on a barge in the middle of the ocean. That's intense, right? That's very, very creative as well. It's completely out the box. And it saves him billions of dollars compared to the competition, right? Energetic, passionate, and committed. All right, so that's Elon Musk. Again, I'm using well-known examples. I could have used a lot of examples. Again, I'll use some local examples in just a second. There we go. Let's see. Speaking of local examples, here we go. This is my former student, Mariette Brown. She's fascinating, and she created, she's, in fact, when I was using the example of the positioning map, the perception map, I was thinking about Mariette, who decided to start her own salon and created one of the first organic salons, at least in Rancho, but also in the area. And she had experience prior, but she decided that she's going to take that experience. She was at Chaffey. She transferred to Cal State San Bernardino. They had a fantastic program there, where they have a partnership with the SBDC, which is a division of the SBA, and with all of her hard work, perseverance, she made it happen. A single mom, working, I don't know how many jobs she worked. She is phenomenal. So I wanted to show you a clip of hers about her salon here. Well,
my name is Mariette Brown, and I'm the owner of Two Organics Salon and Spa. No one should have to compromise their health or the environment. That is the reason why I opened Two Organic Salon and Spa.
From the beginning, when she did not have this business. And because of the growth factor within this business, it has drawn me to continue to come back.
I've been in the industry for 12 years, and when I was doing clients' hair, I was feeling the burning sensation of it, the burning in my throat. So I knew I had to make a change, and that change came with the organic product.
All right, so that's from Mariette to here. Again, a great example of a local entrepreneur who really has been, when I say passionate and tireless, she has really worked very hard to develop the empire that she's building now. Here's another quote from Elon Musk: starting a company is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. If you feel like that, then start a company. So it's misquoted actually, but it's one of his famous quotes. So let's get rolling. How do you start this business? So again, this is from your author right there. If I find the page, hopefully it'll pop up over here. I'll let you know exactly what page we're on, but it's on getting started. I decided that for this one, I'm deviating a little bit from your author in this case, because your author has his own take on the steps to start your own business. And when I say I deviate, it's because here they are. I deviate because I would rather you use the SBA instead, right? Small Business Administration. So already said, getting started, finding the idea, checklist for a business, all that stuff is great. What I'm going to do is have you go to the horse's mouth right there, right? So the first step in starting your own business is self-assessment to determine whether you have the personal traits you need. Again, this is a hyperlink to sba.gov, 10 steps to start your own business. And so I encourage you to make sure that you go through there as well as you decide to start your own. Step one, market research. It has to be, and you really need to be careful about this one. And let me explain. What you'll learn in marketing is that there's direct competition and indirect competition. You have substitute products. You want to start a juice bar and you want to sell juices, and you're thinking, yeah, you do your market research and there's none in the area that, for a couple of radiuses, 5-mile radius, and you're thinking there's enough population density that no problem. And you realize later on that maybe there's no other juice bars, but unfortunately your market share is going to a couple of restaurants. And these restaurants sell juices and they're well known. Maybe they have their own little juice bar. So and it just have to be very, very careful to make sure you take your time and do it right in terms of market research. Write your own business plan. Notice it's conduct your market research beforehand. So in terms of the business plan, what I love about the SBA is they will walk you through how to do this, right? There's lots of steps. How you're going to fund the business. We talked about this in the last chapter, right? Pick your business location. As they say, there are the three most important things to a successful business is location, 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 right? And that's, very, very important. You want to be near a freeway. You want to be near what's called an anchor store. Think about like an actual anchor. And what that means is maybe there's one or two businesses that attract a lot of people. Maybe you're not far from a gym or a movie theater. And as people just decide to walk around and eat some ice cream while they wait for their showing to start, they see your place, right? Choose a business structure. I've heard students even talk about being located for professional. Think about a printing service, and you're right next to a dry cleaner that has a lot of business, right? And so professionals are getting their clothes there, and they see that there's a printer right next. I mean, just you have to be strategic, right? And choose the kind of structure that you want. Again, we talked about this in the last chapter. Is it going to be a corporation? Is it going to be sole proprietorship? Is it going to be a partnership? Is it going to be an LLC, a S-type, C-corp? There's like a million things. And then, of course, the business name. Be smart. Be smart about that one. There's examples. So Jeff Bezos changed the name of the company. I can't remember what the original one name was, but he changed the name of the company to Amazon because he thought he wanted to be listed next, of course, in the A's, to the top of the alphabet. A different strategy of Tony Hsieh, who created Zappos. The original name was supposed to be Zapatos, but he knew he couldn't copyright Zapatos, so he decided to call it Zappos, right? So the name is going to be key. Register your business, of course. Once you picked up the name, get the state tax IDs, apply for licenses and permits, open that bank account, and then open up. So again, there's lots and lots of steps. I'm having you walk through the steps as given by the, in this case, Small Business Administration. Finding the idea. Look at this, 80% of Inc. 500 executives got their idea for the company while working in the same or related industry. It's not always a must, but it's a very smart idea for you to work in the industry of the company that you're thinking about starting, right? If I decide to open up that ice cream store and I've never spent a day working for an ice cream store, I'm going to make some rookie mistakes. I don't really get it. I don't know. There's lots of things I'm going to learn the hard way, and it might cost me. So it's a smart move to first be very familiar with that industry and work in that industry. There's a saying, make mistakes on someone else's dime. That's, sounds very self-serving, but better cost that company money than you losing everything you put into this business because you're making some massive mistakes. So starting a business in a field where you have experience improves your chance of success. Again, that's the rule. But they're not the only way, right? So other sources for inspiration, personal experience as a consumer. There's tons of examples out there of people who started companies because they saw a need. And as a consumer, they thought, hey, I want this. How come it doesn't exist? And they start the business. Others, hobbies, personal interests, start business that way. Suggestions from customers. Probably, I don't know if this is an old example, but there's you guys might have heard of Ross Perot. He ran for president back in the 90s. And a lot of people think he was this Texas billionaire who made a fortune with oil, but actually he made a fortune in computers. Ross Perot used to work for IBM. His account was General Motors, and he sold General Motors a bunch of computers for IBM. When IBM approached him and said, hey, look, we love the computers, but we'd love for you to try to help us, IBM, with service and connectivity. And so he created his own little business plan for his bosses, and they said, no, IBM stands for International Business Machine. We sell machines, we sell computers, we don't sell service. And so he quit IBM. He took all of his life savings and he created a company called EDS, Electronic Data Systems, and basically ended up even competing with IBM and sold the company for millions and millions of dollars. So, obviously he works for the industry. He knows the industry. He had a client express a need, and, the rest is history. Family, friends, industry conference, college courses. So you might know Sarah Blakely. She's very famous. She's a creator of Spanx. So this is a short clip on her and how she started her business.
Sarah Blakely admits she's not your typical CEO. She's never taken a business course, nor did she have any experience in her field. But she's a grade A student when it comes to not taking no for an answer.
I got laughed at a lot the whole way, but I learned that you had to keep going.
Blakely is the world's youngest self-made female billionaire, thanks to Spanx, tight-fitting shapewear for women, an idea that came to her while she was getting dressed for a party.
There was a void for undergarments for women. So Spanx came out and created a completely invisible, lightweight shaper that became second skin.
So they give you a nice shape, they'll suck you in without being too tight and uncomfortable.
I'm getting married and I need to wear something that holds in all the goods so that nobody can see everything that only her husband should be seeing.
Since launching, she's sold 10 million pairs all over the world without spending a dime on advertising.
If a girlfriend tells you at a cocktail party or at, sitting in a restaurant about a product, you tend to become much more loyal and interested in it, I believe, than if somebody showed you a glossy picture in a magazine.
Especially when that girlfriend is Oprah.
I've given up panties, that works fine. That's more information than y'all need to know.
One mention from Oprah and 20,000 pairs of Spanx were sold in less than a day.
You can imagine it's like winning the lottery as an entrepreneur.
But Blakely's road to success didn't start out easy. After failing to make the cut for law school, she settled on a job selling fax machines.
I always say failure in many cases is life's way of nudging you and letting you know you're off course. And if I hadn't failed that LSAT, Spanx would not exist.
After patenting her idea, she begged factories to start making it. Although they refused, Blakely refused to stop trying.
When I grew up, my dad used to encourage my brother and me to fail. So I would come home from school and sit at the dinner table and my dad would say, "Kids, what did you fail at this week?" And if I didn't have something to tell him, he would be disappointed. So if we weren't failing enough in our home, it meant we weren't trying new things.
What do you look for when you hire new employees?
I'm all for taking risks on people who maybe I met waiting tables and I just think she's got what it takes.
Taking a chance on people is one of Blakely's trademarks. She met her future business partner while she was out shopping. They've now worked together for over a decade. Now she hopes to pay all that luck forward, profiling a different aspiring female entrepreneur in her Spanx catalog every issue.
And my advice for aspiring career women is to speak up, embrace what you don't know. And doing things differently is what breaks the mold, is what creates new companies and new products.
Zane Asher, CNN.
All right, so it's great about Sarah Blakely is, again, we're circling back to a lot of the characteristics of a successful entrepreneur, right? Just the dogged approach of not taking no for an answer, following her passion, her vision, and so you're seeing all these patterns, right? All right, so choosing a form of business. So this is, again, we're circling back to chapter 4. We've already done that, but just bringing it in because, of course, it's part of this chapter. Each form has its own pros and cons. We've talked about this: liability, taxation, complexity, etc. Make sure you research each form prior to committing. The sole proprietorship is the easiest one to start, but it's also the one that comes with unlimited liability. Same with partnership. Corporations, very, very complex. You got double taxation. There's other issues there. LLC seems to be like the darling, the sweetheart. There's LLC and the C Corp, S Corp. There's a bunch of other options out there, but LLC has met some of the requirements that a lot of people like. It's limited liability. It's not super easy to start, but it's a lot easier than a corporation. There's lots of ways of starting it. Anyway, so just kind of, this is a refresher from chapter 4, but something for you to remember. Developing the business plan. I wrote Business 45 here again. This is where, in this class, I know a lot of you expressed interest in perhaps starting your, using as a vehicle, the business plan in this class, 4 points, 4 credit. But enough of you were not interested that, it would be a big project. I do absolutely encourage you to take Business 45 at Chaffey College. Business 45 is the class, it's an entrepreneurship class exclusively, and one of the big components of the class during the entire semester is every time you cover a chapter, you're populating that knowledge and answering a lot of questions and doing a lot of research, so that by the time you're done with the class, you will have a solid business plan. How do you know your business plan is solid, by the way? You walk into the SBA, you show them your business plan, and you get their opinion, and you can see if you get a stamp of approval on your business plan to get an SBA approved loan, right? So if you need a loan. But that's that's one of the, gold standards of knowing you got a solid business plan is when the SBA is telling you looks fantastic. So once you get the basic concept for the product or service, you developed a plan to create the business. The planning process culminating is in a sound business plan is one of the most important steps. A lot of people think, I'm just going to start it. We're just going to start it. I know what I want. I can't wait. This is what I want to do, sell ice cream. But because they didn't do their homework, and what I mean by that is a solid business plan that forces you to answer some questions that you might not even think to ask, your chances are better of success. It can also help attract appropriate loan financing. So I just talked about that. Minimize the risk involved and be critical determining whether a firm succeeds or fails. A lot of people won't touch your business if you don't have a plan and you're not able to answer some basic questions. I'm sure everybody's watched episodes of the Shark Tank, and you see what happens when people come unprepared. A comprehensive business plan lets you run various what-if analyses and evaluate your business without any financial outlay or risk. So this is where you have to be super duper honest, Are there going to be recessions? Of course it's going to be recessions. Are you really going to try to figure out what this thing is going to look like if you have all your eggs in one basket and then one external factor, in this case economic, can wipe you out? Hopefully not. Hopefully you're thinking about several contingencies. You can also develop strategies to overcome problems well before starting the business. So again, going into that strategic analysis, contingency planning, direct competition, indirect. There's lots of examples of companies out there who decided that if you go, again, circling back to 3M earlier, 3M invented sandpaper. Just remember that. 3M invented sandpaper. This is a company. Their mission statement was mining and manufacturing, right? Minnesota, mining and manufacturing, that's what it was all about. And if you think about sandpaper, there's a couple of options there. Option A, we're not in the business of sandpaper, mining and manufacturing. This is a, diversion, or it's something that's not really aligned with what we want. Option B, we're going to become the sandpaper giant of the world. That's our new mission. But option C, which is what 3M chose, is to go back and truly understand how they ended up with sandpaper in the first place. And it was because of an internal policy of empowering its employees to take chances. Remember the whole entrepreneurship thing, right? And where people would not get punished if maybe other companies would see that as wasting resources. What do you mean? You're messing around with cardboard and sand and glue, you're fired. Whereas in this case, the company thought, well, give it a shot. If you think it's a good thing, well, great, we'll reward you. And so, what ended up happening with 3M, again, I mentioned it earlier, is that this is a company that ended up completely transforming itself, changing its entire mission to focusing on innovation, right? All right, so writing your business plan, again, this is what I'm doing now is I'm taking you back to the SBA and that little area we were looking at earlier about number 2, write your business plan. I'm just going straight to the horse's mouth. Again, the author is basically using a lot of the content from the SBA, which makes sense because it's there and it's free. So, what I love about this is, it just kind of walks you through what are the plans that help you run the business, pick a business plan format that works for you. You could do the traditional, you could do a lean startup plan. The lean, maybe if you just kind of like really not sure, you don't want to commit too much time and effort. It's a high level focus, fast to write, key elements only. But some lenders and investors may ask more information. This is going to be the thorough one. It's going to take longer. So if you're really committed and serious, you're going to have to do that anyway. If you're just kind of like dipping your foot in the water, you're like, I don't know if this is for me, you could do the lean and see what happens there. And by the way, again, when you do that, it'll walk you through what's the traditional format. You've got your executive summary, which obviously you'll do last because you can't do a summary if you haven't finished it. What is the company description? Again, going back to the market analysis, how are you structured, organization, legal structure of the business, give us an org chart there. What's the service or product line, or service and product line? Marketing and sales, funding, what are you asking for? Where's the money coming from? What are the projections financially? Where you got your information, you want to substantiate all claims, anything you have, credit history, maybe, anything you have. And then what I love about this is they have some examples, right? So, Rebecca's plan over here, they'll show you what, again, you don't want to copy her plan, but it's just to give you an idea for her industry, what the plan would look like, right? And so, let's see here. I'm running a lot of things on my computer and it's just struggling. All right, it's a consulting firm. There you go. So 2016, and again, product. So future of the company, description. She's keeping it short and sweet. There's like 3 people who are the principal members. Maybe it's going to be an LLC then if she's a principal. What's the industry? Again, you get the idea, right? But so that's kind of a way for you to understand what's there. The lean startup format, this is the other one, so we're not going to spend too much time on that one. Let's see. All right. Now, going back to the slides. Financing the business. There's really 3 ways to go, right? So the 2 forms of business financing, number 1, are, so if you have 2 forms here, but another one is called bootstrapping, which we'll talk. So 1, 2, and 3. Debt. So that's pretty straightforward. Borrowed funds. And so, in this case, repaid with interest over a stated period of time. A lot of people, yes, you go to the bank. Remember I told you earlier, some things to consider for female or minority and or female minority business. Going through the SBA and an SBA approved loan, really great interest rates there. Equity, in this case, you're selling some stock, some ownership of the business. That's another way of getting through in terms of debt. You're selling shares of the business to someone who's interested. So those will provide equity funds, get a share of the business profit because lenders usually limit debt financing no more than 1/4 to 1/3. Equity financing amounts to about 65-75% of total startups. One way of financing a startup is through bootstrapping. Again, it's you just funding the operation on your own resources. The example I gave you earlier of Maria 2 Brown with 2 organic salon. I'm aware that Maria too worked for a logistics company when she was still saving, and in the beginning, when you first start, the business is not making a profit. How are you going to pay it? How are you going to make payroll? How are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to pay the lease? We haven't even started with the lease. When you take Business 45, make sure you understand what the triple net lease is. It is not always favorable. You might modify some of the terms. There's so many things involved. But so, having said that, bootstrapping is what Maria 2 did, which is save her money, working graveyard shift, and just working as many jobs as she can to try to pay for her business. Angel investors. So this is when you have someone, it could be a person or it could be an organization, investment firm that's just going to come out and help you, right? So it could be individual investor. The example here I'm using is Andy Bechtolsheim, a group of experienced investors who provide financing to startups by investing their own money, sometimes referred to as seed capital. Again, for those of you who watch that show Shark Tank, the sharks on the show are basically angel investors, right? And if they have companies, then their company's acting as that. It gives investors more flexibility on what they can and will invest in. But because it's their own money, they also tend to be more careful. They often invest in early companies' development, and they want to see an idea they understand and can have confidence in. Andy Bechtolsheim is such a great example. I mean, he's one of my favorite examples of that. This is a guy who came to the United States. He's a German immigrant, computer scientist. He tried to get his company started in Germany, and red tape, paperwork, and the whole thing. So he lands at Silicon Valley and creates this company called Sun Microsystem. And fast forward, he's a billionaire, and he decides that he realizes that this whole thing about investing in companies worked out really well for him. So he is a very famous angel investor himself, and he is one of the early investors of Google. So he spent $100,000 on Google investing as an angel investor, and as of the day that I started looking at this, it's worth $1.5 billion today. That's only through his Google investment, right? So he's an example of an angel investor. Buying a small business, so, I just Googled this picture. I thought it's very representative of what we see sometimes. It could be a gym, it could be a restaurant under new management, grand opening. And, I like this picture a lot because, maybe you've been going to this business for 10 years. And you've been going because you love the food, but you love the service. The owner recognizes you, and you come in and you feel special and at home. And now the owner's gone, and it's the same business, but you got somebody new, right? How do you feel? Do you even want to go? Do you have high expectations? What if it's not what you expected? Which, by the way, it will not be, because that person will not be there, right? So if you think about buying a small business, there's lots of pros and cons, and you have to weigh the two. Sometimes it's a smart move, because if you have a good client base and you can vouch to make sure that it's existing and it's good and it's things were not exaggerated when you bought it, you just it's like we call it the turnkey operation, right? You buy the thing, you get the key, you turn it, and it starts. So the important questions, if you are considering buying a small business, are: why is the owner selling? And you might not get the truth, but maybe they're retiring, they've been doing this for 35 years, and they're done, and the kids are not interested. That happens. Sometimes they're thinking about handing it over to the kids, and the kids are like, nope, I'm not interested in running this business. I want to do something else. Does he or she want to retire, move to a new challenge, or are there problems with the business? Is it operating at a profit? Can it be corrected? By the way, this is going to require a lot of research. You might have to go 50-50 on someone you pick with the seller to have a company assess the value of the business. On what basis does the owner value the company? There it is. So the owner is going to tell you it's worth $500K, and you're not sure if that makes sense and how they came up with the number. And this is what the example I was giving you. If you're serious enough and you commit, and they think that you're serious and they have the incentive to really sell the business, then they might agree to go 50-50 with you, or sometimes pay out of pocket for an assessor of your choice, right, to come in and evaluate the business, and come up with the value of the business. So what are the owner's plans after selling the company? Maybe they are going to go down the street and open up a new one with a different name. That would really hurt. Will he or she be able to provide assistance through the change of ownership? Maybe for the first year, they'll sit with you X amount of hours per week. And depending on the type of business, will customers be more loyal to the owner than to the product? That's the tough one right there. Think about a restaurant you go to or a business you go to because of the owner. You could go anywhere, but you really, really connect. You like the owner. And so that when that person steps down, maybe the food's just not enough. Customers could leave the firm if the current owner decides to open a similar business. So again, this is a non-compete clause There's lots of examples of that. If you think about Southwest Airline, the founder of JetBlue, very famously left Southwest Airline, and I believe he had a non-compete clause for 10 years. Don't quote me on this, but I think that's around the time. That's how long it took for him to get the financing and get everything lined up to start JetBlue. And so JetBlue was created by someone who had left Southwest with a lot of expertise. So anyway, that's what a non-compete clause is. If you buy a small business, it might be a really good idea for you to have your lawyer help you draft this thing. This doesn't mention it, but leasing is does the owner of the business own the place that they're selling you? And if so, what are the lease agreements? It's another triple net. What are the terms? Or they don't own the walls. And what is the lease that you're assuming? Is it transferable? Are you starting a new one? Etc. Risky business over a period of time, 50% of small business, 5 years, sorry, over a period of 5 years, 50% of small businesses fail. Businesses close down for many reasons. Number one, economic factors, right? This is right now we're going through, I have recent covers of The Economist magazine. We have trade war with China. There's a bunch of stuff coming out about the cost of the trade war to the economy, right? Again, manufacturing gets affected, and we're not exporting as much, and distribution, shipping, all that stuff goes down as well, affecting especially, in our case, our local economy. And so what I have here for you is, when you think about a way of trying to put your pulse on the economy, the Conference Board of the United States is a resource for lots of CEOs, right? And so in this case, consumer confidence is down about 10 points almost, right? And if you think about your household right now as we speak, are people feeling like they want to buy a new car? Are they going out shopping? Are they buying that new, dishwasher, washing machine, are they just kind of like on standby? Are they saving? Are savings rates starting to go up? And so employment trend plus 0.21, that's near zero. Help wanted, near zero. Leading economic, flat. But look at this one. So consumer confidence is down almost 10 points, but CEO confidence is down about 10 points. And so if CEOs don't have confidence in the economy, the question is, are they building more factories? Are they investing more? Are they hiring more? And so, right now, as we speak, I just pulled this up right this second from the Conference Board. This is current. The global outlook for confidence, is plus 1 point. Asia Pacific is nil. Europe is at plus 4. And it's going to go down with the whole Brexit thing until we figure out what's going on there. Anyway, these are indices that matter and help you kind of gauge what the future looks like. So economic and financial, to me, they're tied, right? So because policy will affect the economy, which in turn will affect financial causes. So inadequate capital, cash flow, and high expenses for a business. Yeah, because there's a downturn, demand goes down, and you still owe the same debt. You don't want to spread yourself too thin, right? Lack of experience is another reason, inadequate business knowledge, management, technical expertise, personal reasons. Maybe you sell the business, you move on to something else, right? And so scoring with management assistance programs. So SCORE is really cool. The SBA partners with a couple of organizations, and SCORE is a very famous organization that the SBA partners with, right? So let's check it out. SBA offers free management consulting through 2 volunteer groups, the Service Corps of Retired Executives, SCORE.org. Think about that one person who was maybe a boss somewhere, right? They were a manager or an executive for some company, and they just can't seem to retire. These people are miserable at retiring. They just cannot. And so SCORE is really cool because what it does is it will match you with someone who is a retired executive and will help you with your business. And sometimes, in fact, they're so interested that they become an angel investor, right? So let's see what we got here. Just kind of showing you how this works. So let's see, starting my own business is what I want to do, right? I don't know, let's go real estate and rental. We're going to go there. What do we want to do? Right now I need help with business plan and startup assistance. Here we go. How do you fit? I'm a young entrepreneur, or I'm a woman young entrepreneur, whatever, right? Minority young woman entrepreneur. Let's see, continue. And then here we go. Boom. These are people right there who are volunteering their services are as mentors. 40 years of experience, small business, researching, writing, strategic business plan. Ouch, we have a typo on strategic. Sorry, Patrick, to point that out. Anyway, you get the idea there. You have a lot of people, and by the way, usually there's going to be, there we go, more mentors. There's going to be a whole list, so that, maybe now what I start to do is look more closely to Chaffey College here and see what we got. No, none. No. Wow, 91737. Maybe I did this wrong, but anyway, I guess you'll have to find someone from Arizona to help you out. Just keep digging. So that's for that. Active core of executive. Active core executive is another one. You can also research that one. There's more information in your book. The SBA assistance for women and minorities. I have a link here from the SBA, starting a business, how to start a business, find a mentor, counselor, women business resources. So there's that link there. And then for minorities, I like this one actually from NerdWallet. I feel like it does a really good job here in terms of resources. Let's see, here we go. So this is, again, from NerdWallet, Small Business Grants for Minorities, 9 opportunities. And here we go. Grants.gov is a very, very big one. 1,000 grant programs, 26 federal. You have the USDA rural business, not really a lot of use for us here in Rancho. National Association for Self-Employed, FedEx Small Business Grant. There's a lot of stuff available here. If you check it out, you might find something that works for you. All right. The changing demographics create entrepreneurial diversity. It's really cool to see in the past, 20, 30 years, perceptions really change, right? So you've heard of this 60 is the new 40, right? And so people used to have this idea of retirement as that, right? That's it. This is going to be retirement. But today, retirement is really this. Harley Davidson, Harley Davidson has a massive amount of their sales as a market share of all sales goes to retirees. And if you think about that, Harley figured this out, I want to say about 20 years ago, where they started really positioning themselves going after this retired segment that would buy their motorcycles. Prior to that, again, there was kind of a weird little stigma or perception that, except for cruises, that was it. So baby boomers are twice as likely as millennials to start a new business. They're staying active. In fact, close to 25% of all new entrepreneurs fall between the ages 55 and 64, right? So that's a huge chunk right there. I added that because I love this state. Can't deny it. It's the best state of the 50. Sorry, Hawaii. Spotlight on California. Most populous. We have the most people in all the 50 states. More people in California than Canada. We have about 40 million people in California, all trying to be on the freeway on the 405 or the 210 or the 10 at the same time, versus 37 million people in Canada. Wow, right? Again, think about how teeny tiny California is and how massive Canada is. They should really give us some land, right? Anyway, the wealthiest state, that's right. We are also the wealthiest, right? So we have a $3 trillion GDP. That's as of 2018. If we were our own country, we would be the 5th economy on the planet, bigger than India. India's at 2.9 trillion. The UK and France, they're both each about 2.8 trillion. Italy's at 2 trillion. Brazil is at 1.9 trillion. So yes, Brazil. And so again, we rock, man. We rock. And the reason I point this out is because occasionally I'll have students say like, I can't afford a California. I'm going to move somewhere else. And I just think like, but this is where the opportunity is. If you're able to find a way to stay, to afford, I know it's expensive. If you're able to find a way, this is the niche. Just think about this. There are Fortune 500 companies, when they launch product, they test it here first. Toyota tested the Scion here first in California. And if it works here, then they'll spread it out. We're like a country, really. And the cool thing is awesome demographics. We have such an amazing demographic pool of people. We have people from all over the world, from all breaks, and that makes us better. That makes us richer. We have more ideas. We have more innovation. We can, in this case, market products better. We're just better for it, right? So historic shift. Hispanics have surpassed non-Hispanic whites as the largest ethnic group in California. Chaffey College, we're a minority-serving institution. With 60% of our students, give or take, Hispanic population, right? So we represent California really well. Let's see, population trends over the last 50 years. Look at the fastest growing segment since the 70s, Hispanics and non-Hispanic whites over here. This is for the state of California. The California breakdown is right there. There we go. Anyway, some people are shocked by that. I just always kind of think that's interesting. I mean, just look at the names of the cities we live in. You know, just Rancho Cucamonga, Los Angeles, right? You're really shocked. A little bit of history. 53% of Fortune 500 companies are located in California, generating $12 trillion revenue and almost $1 trillion in terms of profit, right? And that's insane. If you look at those numbers, right, that's bigger than a GDP, right? And all of this is, again, stay in California, people. We're special. All right, that's it for now. We just finished this chapter. Again, the slides are available on Canvas. I hope you found this useful. Please remember, people, that I am following the text, right? So when you study, make sure you look at those definitions in the back of the chapter. Make sure that, I've covered everything, but just flashcards. And the quiz will be available this week. I'll send you a text, and you'll have 6 days to complete it. All right, you guys, see you next time.